Lesson 6, Perseverance. You know, it's strange how many different qualities have to be somehow brought together so that they all click in place so that a thing will actually work. And that's why very few people in this world seem to really do outstandingly well, whatever they attempt. On the one side of the spectrum, we've got people who never have any dreams, never have any vision, never have any great ideas. All they think of is in terms of just putting one foot in front of the other, going to work every day, doing their job, doing it well, but slogging in a practical way. And of course they justify themselves by saying that, well, we're living in a practical world and I've got to be practical. On the other side, we've got people who say, but that doesn't lift us above the animals, really. We need to dream, we need to have ideals, we need to think great thoughts and have great expectations of life. And yet, lots of people in that field are always living up in the clouds and never bringing their minds or bodies down to earth. And there are a lot of people who have a wish to do something and have some measure of the two. They can work fairly well, they can dream fairly well, but bring the two together and they don't have that quality of perseverance that makes possible the kind of success that they themselves would like and that we're talking about here. I've noticed this particularly in everything, but a good example of it is in music. And an example of music that just springs to my mind at the moment is Donovan when he wrote Brother Sun, Sister Moon. He did what a lot of composers do. He had an inspiration, but it only lasted him for the first line. And that first line is beautiful, and that's what made the song popular. But it's only the first line. Brother sun and sister moon, la 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 la. So far it's starting to disintegrate toward the end of that. And then he goes la 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 la, which is such a pedestrian ending that anybody could have done that. It's as if he had the willpower and the perseverance to express his inspiration up to a certain point, and then he says, well, that's enough. And a lot of people do that in their work, whatever it might be. They get a bit of inspiration, they start it, they do a good thing, but either they don't carry it through with the same degree of energy, or they sort of go up a little bit, reach a plateau and stay there, or just gradually peter out. Almost everybody who tries new things and has some inspiration has a spurt of it, but doesn't have that degree of determination, willpower, perseverance to be able to keep that same energy day after day. And that's not easy, because there are lots of obstacles, there are lots of things to impede you and prevent you from being able to do what you want to do. And so where that first burst is sort of like beginner's luck, it's easy, then when the slogging work comes to be able to hold on to that inspiration and keep it while you're still working, that's not easy. Now, one way to keep it, so as not to merely leave this lesson on a level of admonishment, persevere. How do you persevere? Well, one way to do it is to always keep in abeyance, sort of behind everything that you're doing, something that isn't touched by what you're doing. That idea, that dream. Always refer what you're doing back to that dream, but keep the dream itself, as it were, isolated so that it doesn't become contaminated by the realities. So that even if the realities prove discouraging, even if the realities seem to bring you to the point where you've got to compromise everything in order to make it work, there's something here that you never lose touch with, you never lose sight of, and that these things, you refer them back to that in order to replenish them at their source, but you never allow the source itself to become polluted. This is a very important, if subtle point, that if, for example, Donovan, when writing that, had not only gone as far as he did and then gotten into writing music, but had kept thinking about the inspiration that brought those first lines into existence, the life of that great saint, Saint Francis of Assisi. And if he'd kept on saying, now, Okay, so far so good, but what would Francis do with that next note? What would that setting? What was his inspiration when he was singing to the beauty of God in all his creation and in all his creatures and so on? What would the next note do in order to express that? And the next note after that? Usually what people will do is sort of like trying to tune a piano from the note before. So you get your C note, then you tune the D to the C, and it's close. You can get it just perhaps exactly, but you attune the E to the D, the F to the E, and you keep attuning each note not to the original, as a person who's a piano tuner would do, but always to the one you did last. And little changes that you yourself are not even able to hear gradually change the pitch to the point where you get an outright dissonance. Well, this is true in your work also, that if you don't keep checking back with your original principles, if you get lost in the marketplace, if you get lost in what you're doing, and don't keep a certain amount of your energy always behind there, always thinking that this is what I'm trying to do, not forgetting it while rushing into it, like the kind of politician who's always thinking that, well, I have to have power, I have to be in power in order to be able to do the good that I want to do, and therefore he starts selling his principles to the highest briber, and finally gets in power, and by then he's forgotten his principles. He's become a changed person. Let there be, if you want to persevere in the spirit of what your dream, your ideals are, rather than in the mere act of trying to do something to push them forward. If you want to persevere in that, as well as pushing them forward, then while acting, always just keep in the back of your mind that remembrance of what you were first trying to do and what you're still trying to do. Let that be your constant point of reference. The next thing is that in order to persevere, you just have to make up your mind that you will do what you have to do. And you don't have to do everything at once, but you've just got to... The one who wins is the one who gives the last punch, not the one who says, well, I've come this far, what does it matter now? No, you've got to, if it takes a little bit more, you've just got to do that little bit more. You never know how much more it's going to take. If you have a nail in a piece of board, embedded in a piece of board, you don't know how much you have to pry it loose before it'll finally come loose. It'll just keep moving up until finally the point of the nail is right close to the surface, and then it'll suddenly spring loose. The same thing with your life, with your work, with your perseverance. You don't know how much you will have to persevere, but you know that you must persevere. And so don't think in terms of what you're doing. Just constantly remind yourself, it doesn't matter. I will keep on until I have reached my goal. And those people who have this combination of practicality, idealism, perseverance, and keeping within that perseverance, that idealism, and always referring back to them, if you can have all those things combined, then you will find that suddenly everything fits into place, and you will be able indeed to actualize your ideas.